Hey, everybody. So delighted to do this and have one of my best friends in Sweden here, CTO Larsson. How are you today, sir?
I'm fantastic. Greetings, everyone, from Stockholm, Sweden.
Greetings.
It's a beautiful evening here, and I'm very excited about this, actually. We've prepared little, and I am super excited. This will be fun.
Good. And a little bit of warning. I don't know what CTO Larsson's going to say. I don't know what I'm going to say. This is live TV. We're going to walk through kind of a structure that I believe is probably the most valid when you look at things like blockchains, how to identify the difference between good and bad blockchains across a whole bunch of categories that we look at. And we're going to get a professional chief technology officer opinion on this, the man behind 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G at Ericsson. So he has a lot of knowledge that he can drop here on us. And our goal is to guide you through this shark infested sea that's out there. So let's just jump in and not waste any time as usual. By the way, those of you who are not subscribed to CTO Larsson, his link is right below in the comments. So let's jump in and see what we got here. First of all, first question. And this should be, hang on, I've got to play with the picture-in-picture stuff. Let me try to do something else. And pardon our dust, everybody. First question is, let me try blow this up. Yes, is DeFi real? So that's the question I'm going to pose to you, CTO Larsson. What do you think?
Absolutely. I don't think there's anyone listening who doubts that at this point. And I feel the world is slowly waking up to what is happening, that this is real, that it turned out that crypto was not just some weird thing that a couple of programmers in the corner was doing. It's gotten pretty big, and countries are adopting it. And I don't think there's anyone who hasn't understood that at this point. So it's definitely real. We're just in the beginning. This will grow 1,000 times from here. Absolutely. This is just the beginning.
Excellent. And the way I look at DeFi, I pop myself up so you guys can see me. The way I look at DeFi, it is going after a very antiquated marketplace, which is worth about 400 trillion. And about 10% of that 400 trillion, which is 40 trillion, is chewed up by fees and middlemen and everything else. And this is what DeFi can interrupt. And this is what makes people very nervous. So second question for you. We have a lot of ground to go through. So team, we're going to go through real fast. This question is, in your videos, you talk about owning Bitcoin, ETH, and Sol. And what is your investment case for each? Is Bitcoin your store of value? Is Ethereum your smart contract use case? Is Solana your speculative highest upside? How do you frame up those different assets?
Yeah, it's very, very interesting. And I think the first question is very key. Is this going somewhere? Yes, it is. And then if crypto, blockchain, whatever we call it, is going somewhere, what will be the specific coins? And there I'm actually very humble. I'm super convinced that the industry, the technology, there is no doubt in my mind that this will revolutionize the world. But I am very humble to what projects it will be that we use in 10 or 20 years. And the reason is that I've seen so many irreplaceable technologies being replaced, to think that I can say for sure, I can stand here in 2022 and say what the world will look like in 10, 15, 20 years. I don't think so. I tell a short story that I told before, but I think it's worth repeating. As you said, I worked with Ericsson before. We were building the telecom protocols, basically that were what we're all using now. But it was a very crazy and speculative idea in the beginning that we should be able to carry data over the mobile system. So we tried to make. We flew over to Microsoft in Seattle and in Redmond, and we tried to work together with them to make their TCP/IP protocol work over this crazy mobile data protocol that we had built. And it didn't work. It didn't work, so we had to do a lot of things together, and eventually it worked, right? And now we're using it every day. But I was sitting there in the office, and it was like the technical coordinator for Microsoft Windows. He was there, and we had the different people from our side, and we were sitting there working. And then I went searching something on the internet, and it must have been Alta Vista that I used at that time. And then this guy from Microsoft said that actually there's another search engine that I think is better. It's called Google. Oh, I'd never heard about that. And he said, I try it. And I tried this search engine, and I thought, oh yeah, actually this was better than the one that I used before. And then I switched. And before that, I never heard about it. And I tried to remember that story because maybe what we will use, the exact protocol that we will use in the future, maybe it's not even invented yet. Who knows? How can I know that at this point? So I try to be very humble and keep an open mind and welcome someone proving me wrong about something. I want to be proven wrong. I want to discover new things and I want to be pro innovation. So to answer your question, BTC, it has really grown on me, this idea that there is a digital gold and there's a store of value and it is difficult to change, pretty much like gold. You can't change the atomic composition, and in the same way, it's very difficult to change something in Bitcoin. It is what it is, and it's a global settlement layer. So that's my investment thesis. It's the leader for this industry. It's a global settlement layer, and you can't kind of change it. It is what it is. And that idea has really grown on me. I like that idea. Ethereum is the leader today in the smart contract use case. When Sotheby priced their NFTs, they price them in ETH. The TVL by chain is largest on ETH. People pay to use it. They pay like $10 million in fees a day to use this protocol, even though it's pretty slow, it's pretty expensive, it's not so great in so many different ways, but they have customers, they have people who pay to actually use it. So they're the leader in that use case, and many times the leader tend to stay leader for much longer than people think. For whatever reason, the leader remains the leader quite long. And Solana is very clear. It is the most exciting technology, I think. And as you put on your slide also, market cap is about 1/10 of Ethereum. So there is definitely a large upside. Crypto is so risky. There's so much that can go wrong all the time. There can be some catastrophe. So there has to be a big upside. If there isn't a big upside, it doesn't motivate the big downside that we have every day, because who knows, tomorrow maybe there's some hack, there's some regulation, there's something that goes wrong. It can always happen, and then there has to be a high upside to match, and those things I really like about Solana.
Excellent. Good points all over the place. So next question, we are going to, again, pound through this real fast. So next question is for you. What do you place importance for the three key elements of a great layer one? Should it be decentralized first? Should it be secure first? Or should it be scalable first? Or obviously the perfect balance between all three? I'd like your perspective.
Yes, it's absolutely key. And I come from a technology where we really built something that in the end scaled to the whole world. Everyone uses it. There's 8 billion mobile subscriptions, and they use those subscriptions every day. So if we don't have scalable, what's the point of it? Are we here only to build something that you, me, and a couple of thousand people, or a couple of 100,000, or a couple of million people use? Is that why we're here? No, I don't think so. That has no future. It has to scale to the world in the end. Otherwise, this is going nowhere. So scalable has to be there. Secure even more so.
Just to interrupt you there for a second. When you say the whole world, do you mean like 100 million concurrent users or 8 billion concurrent users? How do you frame that up in the telco world?
Yeah, exactly. We'll come back to it a little bit later in more detailed discussion, because I think I saw you had a detailed question on that. So I'll save it a little bit. And we'll come back to the calculation. How scalable does it need to be? Because it's a key question. And I've thought a lot about it in preparation for this meeting. So I want to save it a little bit.
Okay.
It has to be scalable. We have to kind of agree that first, that it has to scale. And even more so, it has to be secure. We won't even get through, the third user if it's not secure. And so what does secure mean? Well, it means many things, right? It needs to be consistent, that all the nodes kind of see the same thing, and it has to not be hackable, which has to do with complexity. And secure means a lot of things, but secure is maybe the most important. Otherwise, this is nothing. Decentralized, I feel a little different. I feel that it has to be decentralized enough. But I think that once you're above that level, I think it doesn't matter that much, as long as it's decentralized enough that no one can go and switch it off, or you take out one person, or you arrest someone in Korea or China or wherever, and then it's dead. Okay, then it's not decentralized. But if it's decentralized enough, it doesn't become twice as good by making it twice the number of something.
Yep.
I don't think. So that's my strong opinion on that. And I think that's key because no one has really the answer here. And Ethereum, Vitalik, he has a view that it has to be so decentralized that anyone can run a node, on their laptop or their low-end hardware anywhere in the world and so on. And that is very important to him. I come from a different background. I don't agree with that. I think that it's fine to have sufficient number of bigger computers that don't need to sit on someone's desk. They can be. It's fine that they are in a more controlled environment with maybe more efficient cooling, higher availability, better internet connection, and a rack or a bigger computer. I'm fine with that. It doesn't have to be millions of people securing the network. It's enough with thousands or tens of thousands. That's enough.
That brings me to my next question, actually, is a lot of people are confused about the meaning between centralization and decentralization. So if you ask your average retail investor, decentralization means more retail investors owning a little piece of the tokens. But our perspective is this. Decentralization versus centralization is really a function of the number of validators, as you kind of led into before we talk. So this is a list of all the number of validators for all the top chains that are out there. What do you think of this perspective?
Yeah, it is absolutely key. And here you could get the feeling then that, okay, so Ethereum is 30 times better than the second best, something like that. But I don't think that's the case. I don't really agree with that. I think that many of these are decentralized enough. But if it starts becoming, 20 or something or 10, it's not. You can go and, switch all of those off, and then it's over. Then it's not enough. But thousands of validators kind of is enough, in my opinion. If they are spread out, if they're not standing, if they're standing in one data center, in one country or something, then it's not enough. Or if it's one person controlling them all or something, okay, then no. But if they are sufficient number of these are independent, they're distributed over the world, it's enough. It's enough. Yeah, I feel so.
Excellent.
That's my conclusion from thinking a lot about this. Then I forgot to say something that's very important about the trilemma. You talked about these decentralized, secure, and scalable. And for me, then, the secure and scalable are key, and it needs to be decentralized enough. But then I think there are potentially more components that are not talked about so much. And because scalability, then centralization is not important if there are not people using it. You don't need to scale down if there is no inflow of people. So I think, for example, ease of use is another component, because you can trade this off. You can make it more decentralized, more secure, and more scalable, but in the end, it becomes impossible to use it. So this is a optimization parameter also. Ease of use, ease of integrating with it. If it's too complicated, it's too many, it's like you need to do a master thesis to even understand how it works. It's more difficult to integrate that. There will be fewer people integrating. If it's too complex, it might be harder to improve, because you touch one line of code, the whole thing explodes, and it might be harder to improve it. So complexity is an enemy, at least certain types of complexity. So I think that there are those three trilemmas, but then there are three more, which is ease of use, ease of integration, and ease of improvement. And
beautiful.
These two are also optimization parameters. And I think that these ones all need to be good enough, sort of, to succeed.
Exactly. So you're approaching it the way I approach it. So I compare enterprise software to crypto. And when I'm analyzing an enterprise software company, I use this exact same framework that I do for crypto. And I don't think many people do that. So I was very happy to hear those types of things. So let's jump ahead. We have a long way to go.
Yes.
So next one, what do you think is the most important moat for a layer one protocol? Should it be network effects? And do bridges and forks kill this? A developer moat, a user base moat, a strong army, a dApp and ecosystem moat? Where would you weight these different categories?
Yeah, so I don't have so big respect for moats in general. I think that they can be, you can swim over them somehow. so so I feel that they are sometimes overrated because we're anyway so early. It just takes one developer. It just takes one developer on one layer one to write something that everyone wants to use. Just one guy, that's enough. That's not much of a moat, really. And we've seen it many times. Many of the biggest applications, they were kind of created by one or a couple of people. So this is not a theory. This already happens. So, Bitcoin was largely written by one person, and the Uniswap. And I mean, there's so many examples. So this can definitely happen. And then users are a little slower to move over. That's a larger, that's maybe the biggest one. Network effects, that's kind of same thing as the user mode. People like to use something, they're familiar with it and so on. But I think the dApp and the developer mode, I think that those are potentially overrated, because suddenly tomorrow something comes that everyone wants to use. Okay, we will take the 20 minutes it takes to set up a new wallet or whatever it is we need to do. If we think that we're going to make money on it, everyone here on the show will take those 20 minutes and do it, whatever it is we need to do. So I don't think that they are so big, actually. And I think they can all be crossed.
So at the end of the day,
modes.
you think all these modes can be threatened by low switching costs over to cheaper, better, faster alternatives?
Absolutely. And I've seen it. I mean, we've done it with technology. You put the hardware in everyone's pocket, and we build 10 million towers all over the world and put some supercomputer on top of it. And then someone comes and says that, hey guys, I have this idea. How about we do something else instead? We're going to change everyone's phones in the pocket, and we're going to go out and reinstall all those towers. And by the way, the towers are probably in the wrong location also. So we need to move those millions of concrete towers also. And that is impossible. We should just improve the old one. But we did it in that. So moats can be crossed, and I don't have so much. It can be slow, right? But over, if we here, I think a lot of your audience and you and me, we're long-term people. So if we try to do long-term things, we're long-term people. We try to see beyond the next couple of months or even this year. I think all these bridges can be crossed.
Yeah. So
all these moats can be crossed. We can build bridges.
So you believe moats don't exist? Like, for example, I look at companies like Tesla. They have 7 or 9 different moats by my count. They're all huge. They all take 5 to 7 years to swim across, as you say. But in crypto, the time is much less to swim across.
Absolutely. There is a big difference with Tesla. Thanks for bringing that up, because there is a difference. Tesla has a huge competence advantage in their AI technology, for example. It's not easy to go and build the same self-driving capability. They have huge competence advantage in battery technology, maybe, and so on. So it's not easy to copy. If you set up you and I set up another company today, and we try to build the same car, we can't really do it. We have an enormous uphill before we can do that. But crypto is different. It's a lot more open source culture, and you can't copyright the idea. Even if you you change the code like Uniswap did and so on, try to avoid that other competing swap platforms copy their code. Okay, but you can't copy the idea. So you can still re-implement the code. It's not that difficult. So that is different. While if we go out and we try to copy Amazon, or we try to copy Tesla, we try to copy Apple, that's not easy. But to copy a blockchain protocol and change a little bit, and that is comparably easy. If we have money to reach out, I mean, the difficult thing there really isn't the technology as such; it's to reach out, and that typically takes money, right? The dream that some guy just writes something great and it spreads by itself and everyone discovers how great it is and they start using it and so on. That maybe worked the first time with Bitcoin or the first time with Ethereum. It was a completely new idea and so on. But when there are 10,000 projects and there's a lot of noise, it's hard to break through the noise and get your great idea out.
Exactly.
Today.
You're going back to what I call the VHS Betamax analogy.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could have the better
Exactly.
technology, but if you don't have the reach, you're not going to go anywhere. Okay, let's jump ahead to what I call, what is your favorite consensus mechanism area? So do you like proof of work, proof of stake, proof of history, or sharding, or whatever else flavor you like? Where would you place weight, or does each consensus mechanism have a different purpose for a different chain?
Yeah, I think that we should give the proof of work the credit it deserved. It really created something completely new that didn't exist with Bitcoin, and I really like it from that perspective. But now I feel it feels a little aging, and the electricity consumption, I feel it is a problem, actually. I think of course, I know all the arguments. If we compare, what are we comparing with? If we're comparing with gold mining, where Bitcoin is better. If we're comparing with the traditional financial system with all their branch offices and air conditioning units and everything, Bitcoin is better. But say that this really takes off, Bitcoin is worth 10 times more and so on. There's going to be a lot of electricity spent, and I do feel that we maybe need to move forward, try to improve on that. I do feel that. So proof of work was great. Now maybe we need to start looking at other technologies. I wouldn't suggest a new blockchain technology today with proof of work. So then we come to the other technologies, and I mean, proof of history, I think, is one of those. Well, like when you fundamentally understand how blockchain works or how Bitcoin works, it's like, oh, it's a new realization. And same thing with many other times. And first time I understood this proof of history, it's a beautifully simple idea, right? That you can just prove that things happened in a certain order because you put the history into the hash, and then you can say for sure that had happened before I did something, because I put the history, I put the thing that happened before, I put it into the hash. And then you can say for sure that had happened before. I proved the history. And I think that's a beautifully simple idea. It's so simple that it seems kind of obvious. So I really like it from that perspective. I think it's a great idea that takes something trivial, what has already happened before, and use it for a consensus mechanism. I think it's a beautiful solution, and I really like that. And I think then that proof of stake, that say Ethereum trying to move away from proof of work to proof of stake, I think it's a good thing. I do support it. I think that they're eventually going to succeed with that transition, and it will cut the power consumption, and the network will still function. So I think it's good from that sense. Then coming into the sharding and the scaling, that's a bigger topic, and maybe we take it on the next question. How about that?
Exactly. Okay. And the next question for us is, does speed matter? There was some heads of different blockchains that said, no, speed doesn't matter. It's all about other factors. But we sometimes believe it does. So let's look at this one here. Does speed matter? And what do you believe is the optimal transaction per second for a layer one? What is the bare minimum floor? For example, 5,000 transactions per second, or at least 1 million transactions per second, as per Sam Bankman-Fried. He says getting to 1 million TPS is key in order to run real case scenarios like running a blockchain for a stock exchange, etc. Where do you believe the floor is and the roof is for speed?
Yes. So this is really one of the really key questions, and I think that Sam is partly right, or largely right, I would say. I always think that, okay, so where do you even start? Because frankly, in the blockchain space, we don't have that much real use yet. So we don't really know what is really needed, because a lot of the times that we have maxed out something, there was some problem going on, or there was some denial of service attack, or there was something else that caused the blockchain to max out. And I mean, Bitcoin and today's Ethereum layer 1 is laughable, right? We come from a space where we have built something that's used by billions of people all the time, and there's messages the whole time to keep alive all this communication. So when someone talk about 7 TPS for the whole world, or 20 TPS and so on, it's a joke. So yeah. I feel that I have one thing that I've always used as a frame of reference, and that was in China. They are more advanced with using the phones for payments, and they've been for quite many years. So Alipay already in 2017, on the 11th November, 11/11, which is a single day where you buy roses, I guess, and so on for your loved one and so on. Alipay then peaked at 256,000 TPS at the peak. Then I'm sure they've exaggerated it a little bit and so on, and what were all those transactions and yada yada, but somewhere in that range. So actual payments, not just lab experiment, but actual use in 2017 was 256,000 TPS, actual payments for that application. Then I check now in 2020, the similar, then Alibaba's Tmall orders, they peaked at 583,000 transactions per second on the singles day on 11th November 2020. Then it's hard to kind of find numbers after that. So, maybe their competitor got bigger or something. Don't know. And I'm sure they've exaggerated the numbers a little bit. But about 500,000 TPS in one country for one application, payments in China on Singles Day. So then if we look at the rest of the world, maybe we don't, at least there's different time zones, and maybe we're not so interested on the 11th November. Maybe it's in the US, it's a Christmas Day, or some other part of the world, it's some other celebration. So not everything happens at the same time. But say maybe for one application, 1 million TPS is a good estimate if we're extrapolating from this actual use. So 1 million TPS for one application, for example, shopping. And then I think we're going to have a few, not 1,000, but a few key applications like that. We will have maybe shopping. We might do something in metaverse. We might have some social
doc exchange,
media, some doc exchange. We're doing some different things. We're having some trade. Maybe we're doing trading. So we have a couple of applications. Say that we have 10 applications of similar size as shopping. Say that Amazon represents shopping, then we have other applications, and about maybe 10 of that size. So each application, 1 million TPS for the whole world, number of applications of that size, 10. That gives us, I think, a target figure of 10 million TPS. Then we basically cover the whole world for the 10 big applications. And we don't need to do that today, right? Because this is going to take time. Before everyone in the world uses blockchain for all these 10 applications, that's going to take a while. So I think Sam's rule of thumb, 1 million TPS for one application. Maybe he's thinking of his application with an exchange. Yeah, there could be one application, and then I think 1 million TPS is right. And to cover everything, 10 million TPS, I think we're good to go for a while.
Excellent. So let's jump ahead to the next thing that's tied to what we just spoke about, the speed, but switching gears to cost. Does cost matter? So let us know. So for example, our transaction costs killing Ethereum, they're at a 6-month low right now, but still $25 is too much for somebody in an emerging economy, for example. And like all our other industries, what I've seen happen is users gravitate towards the lowest cost, the fastest and best service. What do you see happening? And maybe bring in some parallels from the telco industry.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. Everyone's saying that cost doesn't matter and high cost is good because it filters. They are wrong. We have seen that cost is enormously important. We could never bring a telecom or internet and giving everyone access to information through the mobile phone if we couldn't bring costs down to impossible levels. And it's everything. Cost is everything. And I feel ashamed almost to be speaking for this industry, and then someone excited in some other country starts using Ethereum, and they write and they say that there's something wrong here. What does this number mean? And it's like, yeah, it's like 2 weeks salary for you here if you want to do a transaction. That's not good. I feel it's frankly unacceptable. And if we're speaking of Ethereum, then what that's why I talked about those three and the other three, because there is already layer 2 solutions. It's actually not proof of stake. It's not the transition of Ethereum to proof of stake that's going to fix the cost. The fixing the cost is the layer 2s, and they're already here, but there's not so many people using them because there's some other complications, and it's kind of harder to use and so on. So this is a real problem. Transaction fees and Ethereum is not in a good spot from that perspective. And we have to remember that we're not that many people using this technology today. So
Exactly.
this has to, radically improve.
That's a very key point. If you look at the 15 TPS and ETH 2.0, which now has a new name, when it does launch, it might hit 20 TPS. So they're so reliant on layer 2s. We'll talk about that in a minute, but let's keep up the speed. So again, from my enterprise software experience as well in the past, one of the key things is usability. Now, you could also talk about, I used to be a BlackBerry user. One of the things, I shouldn't even say this, but I used to like to write emails and drive. And I could do it with my hand and the steering wheel with the little roller wheel on the side. So let's talk about usability and crypto and how you believe it's important. So, for example, siloed UX is user experience, everybody out there, approaches based on traditional channel mentality really drive slow adoption, and UI and UX and harmony helps deliver a seamless digital experience. And development silos and inconsistent development frameworks and architecture hinder continuous and fluid customer experience. Now, the simple example I like to talk about is the difference between Phantom Wallet and MetaMask. Very, very simple example. Or using a simple application like Celsius, which I know you use as well, versus some of the other options out there, or trading platforms. What is your take on this and the impact for the industry, and how much emphasis would you place on usability and uniformity building on the same stack? So no matter what dApp you go to, you have the same experience.
Oh, absolutely. This is radically underestimated. This is perhaps the most important, because we have to remember that us using this today, we're like the super enthusiasts, the super geeks. We can manage perhaps, but we're not here, right, to just send money between each other, right? We're trying to grow something. We're trying to bring something to the rest of the people. And I mean, you cannot overestimate how important this is. I've seen it. Ericsson invented the word smartphone, and we built a smartphone. But with some geeks like myself, I could use it and so on. But it never really took off. It was only when Apple made a smartphone that slowly it started taking off. Not many people used that one either. Not many people bought the first iPhone, not the second iPhone either, not the third iPhone either. It was like the fourth version people started buying. But only then it started getting good enough. And you have to try to imagine how many smart people before that tried to solve this problem. Great, engineers and designers and huge companies like Vodafone or Verizon, AT&T, people who have like 100,000 employees and they have a lot of money. They can go out and hire the best minds in the best minds in the world. And all these people sit and try to solve the usability problem. How do we realize that we have something here? You can send data to each other, we can do. And people build products and they have billions and billions and billions of dollars at their disposal, and teams of hundreds and thousands of people and hundreds separate of those teams trying to solve it. And it's kind of good, but it was never good enough. It wasn't usable enough. So in the end, no one used it. It was, or I mean, some people used it, but not that many. It was kind of a little too difficult. You had to put in some setting maybe. People don't like settings. So 90% of people, they never spent the 20 seconds it would take to go into settings and enter something. It was maybe the only thing. It just took 20 seconds and they could, change their life, but they never spent the 20 seconds. It wasn't useful enough. And there were initiatives like 1, 2, 3, and you should have like one click, and it should only take 2 seconds and 3 clicks to content. And there were all these great initiatives. Nothing was good enough.
Yeah,
it was only
I still get horrified.
BlackBerry.
When
BlackBerry did it. Exactly. BlackBerry did it. Come back to your example. BlackBerry did it good enough, and then it became a huge industry. Apple did it good enough, then it became a huge industry. But that's how difficult it was. And then thinking, okay, how advanced were all those previous solutions that really never took off? They were like 80% there, 85% there, but not all the way to the finish line. And where is MetaMask on that scale? Where are the different applications that we use today? Okay, they're at step 1.5, and we're trying to go to 100 here. We haven't even gotten started yet. It is so difficult. It is so complicated, and of course we are more motivated because we think we're going to make money here. So we are more motivated. We're willing to spend a while, but it's too difficult. It's too easy to get scammed. You go on NFT, you approve some transaction, you have some, hardware wallet, you do some blind approval as a hex string that you were supposed to check, and if you didn't check it, boom, all your NFTs go out somewhere and so on. It is nowhere on the scale of where we need to be. And I think that, to come back to your point also, I think how the experience is then shared across dApps, it's super important, and I think it's underestimated.
Exactly. Well, I'm glad you said that. We're going to have to pick up the speed a little bit because we have a long journey to go. So let's try to keep this to 60 seconds if we can. Now, this next one is what we call integration. And does integration matter? Again, going back to some of the background, like composability is a big buzzword right now. How much does composability matter? You won't be able to answer this in 60 seconds, but we'll try as quick as possible. And also in your Luna video, you mentioned that one of the things it does best is integrate across protocols. If we move to a fully integrated and fully composable world, what is the value of individual layer ones? So this is a bit of a loaded question, but I'm going to hit you with it.
Yeah, it's a key question. And looking at some other protocols then, where we have the answer, TCP/IP, the internet, and telecom. In the end, those protocols won, and they dominated everything in the end. But they didn't win by trying to attack all the other protocols and say that our protocol is best because 1, 2, 3, 4. No, they won by providing value to all other protocols. And if you work in, you work in enterprise software, or you work in basically any other industry, you realize that if you can integrate, you can provide value, after a while, you kind of sit there in the middle. And that's where you can start branching out, you can grow, and that's how you win. You win by being nice, you win by being useful. You don't win by, trying to hit all that. It's not like the game called where you try to whack-a-mole. You don't win by being whack-a-mole. You win by, being the orchestrator and provide value to everyone. Amazon Web Services is a good example, and so on. So the integration is super important, but it doesn't mean that integrating all those other protocols will mean that everything remains. But I think the ones that will grow is the ones that try to provide value to a large number of participants. But then I think it will probably I stop there. Then maybe it's 60 seconds.
But it is such an important issue, and those chains that don't have the hooks, as we used to call them back in the day, will fall behind. Okay, next question. This is another good one. Let's jump into this one. If you were the CTO of a layer one protocol, what would you optimize for? some centralization okay, perhaps wallets, reliance on cloud computing like AWS, dApps, or how to balance the amount of speed needed for layer 1 versus layer 2. And if a protocol's layer 1 is slow and all scaling happens on layer 2, does it open itself to compromises in security and decentralization? Again, an awful lot to unpack here, but I'm going to put you under some pressure to give it justice as quickly as you can.
Exactly. So I think this is the key. And I here have some new thoughts. So this one will be longer than 60 seconds, but I think it's absolutely key. And I think that all the protocols are wrong, but some are more right than others. And I think we have two ends of the scale here. Ethereum tries to solve the generalized problem of scaling while maintaining that everyone should be able to participate in validating the network. It gets exceptionally complex, and we try to solve every possible application, every possible problem for everyone in the world while maintaining the centralization and that everyone should be able to run it. And it gets very complex. The years in the works and with so many smart people, amazing people, well-meaning people, great people on it proves that point. And then there's other end of the spectrum, and you know, don't be upset now here, but Solana is sometimes saying that we don't need to improve it at all. It's, you know, enough already. We just scale hardware, and with you know, Moore's law and Edholm or Nielsen's law for bandwidth increase is going to take care of itself. Now, one of those two, I think, are more right than others, and there is a conclusion here in the end, because I think there is a third solution to this, which I think will be the end solution. Because instead of what Ethereum is doing, trying to solve the generic problem of solving everything, I think in the end it will come back to what I talked earlier. I think that we will solve a specific problem instead and cover 80% of the need. And it comes back a little bit to the same thing like telecom. How do you build something that scales to 8 billion people, and there's messages every microsecond almost to keep all this signaling alive? How would you even do that? Well, you have to segment it in some way, right? You can't just connect everyone to everyone. If you and I should be able to call each other, or I should be able to send a TCP/IP package or UDP packages to you so we can have this stream, not everyone can be connected to everyone all the time. It's like too much. It's not possible. So then there is a segmentation happening in the cellular system. That's why it's called the cellular system. You kind of segment geographically, that you put up in the range, not 1,000, but in the range of maybe 10 million cells. And then in each cell, on average, there's in the range of 1,000 people. So 10 million cells, 10 million base stations times, that's more cells, but 10 million base stations times 1,000 people in each one. That is approximately 10 billion people or 8 billion people. So that's everyone. That's one way to segment it. And then, but that's not the only segmentation. Then those are kind of aggregated. Those that are nearby are aggregated. The country is aggregated, because I'm more likely to request a package from Netflix CDN server standing in Sweden than I am to request one from CDN server standing in India, for example. So we don't need to provide the same service level to the person who wants to request the package in India. We don't need to provide the same bandwidth, because there's not so many people of them. And the time that you actually do want to get that package, you can accept a worse experience that time. And because for 80% of the time you don't, or more than 80%, you kind of segment it. You stay in the domain of the application or the geography. So I'm more likely to, for example, call or interact with another person in Sweden than I am to interact with someone further away doing something completely different. So there is a natural segmentation. And I think the same is true for blockchains. So why do we need to solve the generalized problem? Why can't we, keep the people who are doing, for example, shopping in China at one aggregation? They can be different from those who are trading on the Indian stock exchange, because the interaction within those are many, but between it's much fewer. You have to be able to do it, but you don't need to have the same latency, you don't need to have the same finality, you don't need to have all those things. So I think that most of the blockchains have actually gone wrong here. They try to do something very advanced with many layers, layer 2, and enormous complexity, with so many different scaling solutions that should work together, and it gets so complicated. And I don't think it's necessary. I think that Solana here is taking a better approach. You try to build something that's much simpler, but much more scalable. So you have a larger pool, because it has to be big enough to serve one application in one one domain. And then, but why can't you then have a couple of those and they're kind of interconnected? And I think that's where we are going. So I actually prefer the scalability here of Solana in this case, which have gone much harder on the layer 1 scalability for a simpler, more straightforward solution that is easier to understand, easier to integrate with, easier for all dApps. They work the same way, and it's kind of scalable enough today for all the applications. But if we're looking forward, if this grows faster than Morse or Edholm's law and all those things, I think that the solution is not to build all these super complex solutions. I think the solution is to segment it in some way. And this isn't implemented yet. There's no proposal for it. But I think that's what we will end up with. And that would be the solution that I would recommend, that there is a simpler scaling, and then they're interconnected with some sort of lower performance, worse latency, maybe a larger settling time for the times that you need to interact between these couple of domains. And that's what I would do.
Excellent. Good feedback. Let's go to a switch gears. This is going to be a simple yes or no question, because we still have a couple of other questions to go through. Do you think the market is properly valuing a layer 1 technology out there today?
No, I don't think so. Absolutely not. The valuations are largely disconnected from all fundamentals at this point.
Okay, excellent. Management team, how important is that to you? There's a lot of hubbub out there on the market right now regarding the importance of management, like post the Cronje department at Phantom, rattle the crypto. And do you think it's very, very important to vet who is behind a layer 1, layer 2, etc.? And think in terms of who who selected your teams to make your life-changing technology of 4G, 3G, 2G, etc.?
Yes, and I think I know the answer. Here is something that I know for sure, and that is that leadership matters. Leadership, in fact, is everything. The 2G, 3G, 5G, and so on, that was also decentralized. The standardization of it was decentralized. We had open source before the term open source was created. It was a truly decentralized work to create the specifications. That doesn't mean that leadership isn't important. In the end, the people, we humans, we crave leaders, we crave leadership. We want someone who we can trust and that we believe knows what to do. And I feel that leadership is super important. And it doesn't have to be just one person, but I believe truly that leadership is not going out of style just because we have decentralized nodes that executing the validation of the protocol. Leadership is key, and I think there are some leaders that are better than others.
Good stuff. At the end of the day, it is a very, very important area. Next question is the breadth of dApps on a chain. I think, me personally, I think this is a critical issue because it shows the versatility of the blockchain. But what's your take on how important that is to a layer 1 in terms of the breadth of dApps that exist?
Yeah, for sure you need to be able to write the applications. I mean, some blockchains, people waited for many years, and then it turns out you can barely write the key applications on the blockchain. You cannot get it to work. Okay, then that's a problem. But exactly how many dApps is written on something and how many they are, that's not so important, because it's like there's an 80-20 rule, right? Most people use a few applications, or 90-10, and then there's a long tail of many applications that not many people use. So I think the absolute number of applications isn't so important. A couple of applications can change everything.
Yeah, excellent. Now we're moving at the speed of light. All of a sudden, at the speed of a good L1. Next question is one thing that we're grappling with right now is how incentives drive price action in crypto. You have Avalanche just came out a day or two ago with $290 million in additional incentives to attract people to build games and metaverse applications within their application. How much do you think this is influencing price action on some of these chains?
Oh, I think there's a lot of influence. Absolutely. I mean, say incentivizing developers. Okay, that's at least a good cause. I mean, maybe one of those developers come up with something truly great, and maybe that person couldn't afford to develop without the grant. Otherwise, maybe he had to work in the shop or somewhere else. Not everyone is as privileged as we are and have time in the evenings and so on. Many people have to work 14 hours a day. So I think that incentivizing developers is still the best incentive you can do. But there's a lot of other incentives also. I am certain there's so many people who are paid to pump, and you just load up a big incentive bag, and you say that if you pump this, we're going to give you money. You have a big YouTube channel. I have a smaller YouTube channel than you, but even I, at this stage, every day there's like 5 emails of someone saying, "What is your rate to pump my project?"
Yeah.
And you and I, we don't pick up on those, but maybe others do. And I mean, maybe isn't YouTubers. It's like you go out and find 10,000 random people, and you give them money to market something. They're going to market it.
Yeah,
And
it's criminal. You just mentioned their stuff. I could earn $25,000 twice a day, literally.
oh yeah, absolutely,
But I will never do that.
100%.
I will never sell my soul to the devil. So, and
Exactly.
so next question, real quick, as we jump in through this. This is regarding TVL, which is kind of related to another type of incentive, but how people appraise. They think the value of a blockchain is a function of how much TVL is locked in. But sometimes TVL is driven by very high APYs, like 100% or 20%, etc. How important is TVL for you? And do you think it's artificially propped up by incentives that are not sustainable over the medium or long term?
Yeah, I kind of I like the term much more in the beginning, before I realized much of what you talk about here. That what I liked about it is that, okay, here we have some measure where people have risked money. So that is something, right? I like the term customers. I don't like the term users. A customer is someone who pays to use something. I mean, you like to use it so much. If you lock your money, you trust it in some way, otherwise, because you might lose the money. But so in that sense, I like the idea with TVL, but as you highlight, it's also possible to manipulate, right? And in many cases, these are projects that have huge treasuries. If it didn't cost them anything to put in all that money, for example. So there wasn't anyone actually risking their own hard-earned cash here. It was just some project to put in an artificial huge number. And also this with staking and so on, everyone talking about, yeah, we can retire on this and so on, because I get this many percent yield. But actually, you're not getting anything, because someone is issuing more of those tokens. So
Yep.
yeah, you're collecting money here, but someone is issuing more of them at potentially higher rate. And if price goes down, you're actually not making any money here. You're losing money, because the value of the stuff that you have staked goes down. So even if you earn 50% APY, if you lose more than that in value, you haven't made any money. So all these things together is that the measure as it's defined today isn't really comparable. I wish that someone, maybe we should work on that, should make a better measure. The measure should be how much real money have people trusted, how much real liquid money that someone had hard earned are they putting in, and they trust that isn't going to go away. That
Exactly.
would be the measure. Yeah.
Now, so the next one that I know the audience is very interested in is, what are the 3 things you look at when you make a trade? Specific indicators, data points, fundamentals, like we look at management team, etc. Or you look at tokenomics, unlock schedules. How do you evaluate chain metrics? How do you identify flywheel effects? Could you give us, again, for 60 seconds, we could probably talk for 10 hours with all this stuff. And these are huge loaded questions, but I want to share as much of your brain with the audience as quickly as possible.
Yeah, so it's a fantastic question. I tried to boil it down to 3 things. And interestingly, to do investment, right? I was an engineer. I spent most of my life. I knew nothing about investment, absolutely nothing. And only later in life I realized it's a learnable skill. Because to do investment, you need 2 things right. You need the what and the when, and that's it. That's what you need. And I had the what. I always had the what. I was always early on every new technology, all these big companies. I was the first user on everything, but I didn't have the when. I didn't know anything about trading or investing or anything like that. So if when I did something, I was usually wrong. I was too early, for example, and then it kept going down because everyone said, "Your idea, it's like crazy. No one's ever going to use that." And then I gave up and sold, and that was the bottom. And then it went up 1,000 times or something. So I didn't realize that the when part is a learnable skill. That's actually the easy part. And so the when part is, we start with that because that's 2 of these things. You need to hold it through uptrends, because these things can go both ways, and they can go much further than anyone thinks. So, I mean, my whole process is centered around that. Try to stick to the uptrends. You hold through the uptrends, then you get out, and you don't worry too much. Don't need to pick the bottom. You don't need to pick the top, but you need to be in on the uptrend. And that's one thing. So is the trend up? If it isn't, okay, that's it. I'm not interested at this time. Maybe later I'm interested. So number 1, trend has to be up. Number 2, in crypto specifically, we touched upon it earlier, there has to be an upside because the risks are huge. We can all wake up tomorrow and our money is gone. So if there isn't even an upside large enough, I'm not interested. There has to be an upside. There has to be a possibility of a large upside. And number 3, the what. What is it that we're going to buy? And that is, the first 2 are pretty easy. But the third one, there are no shortcuts to. There is no shortcut to understanding which of these projects are good. There isn't. It's the only thing that works is hard work, studying, reading, and having friends like people like you and me. We exchange idea, we exchange thoughts. That's the only thing that works, because this is so difficult. There's so much misinformation. There is so much intentional misinformation. We talked about pumps and so on earlier, that it's so hard to separate out what is real and what is not. That is really the difficult. And there is no replacement for own reading and having friends and knowing who to trust. And then you trust them. That's really my conclusion. So the trend has to be up. There has to be a big upside. And it has to be something that I believe is the right thing, that can go somewhere. And unfortunately, there is no easy trick to do that. You need to build models, or you need to have a nose for technology, or you need to have something. You need to have friends.
Awesome. So next question, we're going to jump into this one, and we're getting close to the end here. I skipped a few because there's going to be not enough time. But this one is regarding layer 2s and ZK rollups. It's a deep philosophical question that I struggle with. And do you consider layer 1s needing layer 2s, or are layer 2s a band-aid or a short-term solution to a long-term problem? Like, basically, do you believe a layer 1 should have scalability embedded in it, or rely on external factors to help it scale?
I think that we can't get to 10 million TPS on only layer one. I think we will need some segmentation. But to keep it short, I think that many of the roll-up solutions, the plasma solutions, all the different ones, we don't need to talk about it. And they're very complicated. I think that we will end up, I much prefer a simple layer one that we can segment, a little bit like I talked before. I think that's what we're going to end up with. And many of these solutions, I think, are over complicated. We have seen like Lightning Network and so on. It's been in the works for a long time now, and this is the leading solution. It is difficult to make these things work. Ethereum layer 2s are already out. Not that many people are using it. It's complicated.
Excellent. So next final one, which is kind of a little bit related. This is to do with bridges. So the future of bridges, are they the great equalizer? And what I mean by that, will they enable people to work across blockchains and find that lowest transaction cost, highest speed, etc., ease of use? Or are bridges doomed to a repeat wormhole exploit? And are interchain protocols like Polkadot and Cosmos the future? And will they crush those that cannot scale and are expensive? 60 seconds.
In the end, I think we will, like there are other global protocols, I think it will converge. I don't think we will have 50 blockchain layer one protocols. No, I don't think so. I think it's possible to make one that serves everything, just like we can have one 5G network we in the whole world. We don't need to have 50 different networks to optimize for slightly different use cases. We don't need to have 50 different TCP/IP protocols, 50 different HTTPS protocols, or something like that. No, there will be an element of winner takes almost all. Not everything. There will be niche cases, but I think that's where we will end up. The multi-chain bridges. It's a fundamental, logic error to think that you can lock something on one blockchain and then you mint on the other one, because you can attack the weakest one and then you can mint money which you didn't have, because you just need to attack it long enough. You just need to, 51% it, or whatever attack vector it is. You just need to 51% long enough for the other side to release the tokens, and then you can get caught here. But then you already have the tokens on the other side, and that's not easy to solve. Cosmos is a good idea. I like that idea that you have like one protocol then that serves all the applications. That's a good idea. I like that idea. But I'm not sure that this multi-chain bridge world is going to function in that.
Awesome.
No, I don't think so.
I love that experience. Are there any parallels between that and the telco world? 10 seconds.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a lot of protocols. In the end, one protocol won.
Excellent. Good. Okay. Final question before we go to the conclusion. The conclusion is really exciting, everybody. Trying to get this into an hour is, how many L1s will survive? We know there are 17,000 tokens out there. I would say 95% of them are garbage and will go to zero over the next 4 years. Maybe it's more like 99%, but I always like to sandbag just in case. But we live in a multi-L1 universe in the future. Now, is everything going to be absorbed into one layer, or will there be 5 or 10 layers, or will there be 1,000 layers? Going back to telco, what do you see in your crystal ball for the future of L1s, and how many will be doomed?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit like marriage. You can be married to one person at a time in most of the world, and I think that's a little bit how it will be here. But then over time that could change. So I think that there will be one dominating layer one protocol, and then over time that could change, and it won't be 100%, but I think it will be dominating. It could be like 70-80%, and then there's a few bubblers that come and try to challenge. Some of those will die, but occasionally one of those challengers could overtake and become the new dominating protocol, and then after a while they start feeling so sure of their position that we're so big, we have so many moats that no one can touch us. And then you get fat and lazy, and you stop working hard, you stop trying, and then one of those challengers eventually can overtake you again. And I think that's the world that we will live in. I think it will be a sequential monogamy world that it can change over time, but there will be a dominating layer 1 protocol for each period of time.
I
Not
love that.
100%, but dominating, and then some challengers underneath.
I love that. And everybody, for the conclusion, we had some cool stuff happening. We had Dr. Watson, who is a team member here with us, analyzing the feedback so far live. And he also inserted where he prioritizes blockchains as we go forward. So this will be interesting to see exactly what the conclusion looks like, to see if CTO Larsson and I are aligned, and if we are aligned with Dr. Watson as well. So let's look at the conclusion slide right now. So here, this is the level of importance. I hope you can all track this. We have all the topics we discussed: decentralization, security, scalability, cost, usability, integration, management, the leadership teams, dApps, TVL, scarcity, layer 2 reliance, bridge reliance, moat, and consensus. And we scored them from 1 to 10, 10 being critically important, 1 being not that important. And you can see here, bridge reliance. CTO Larsson says not that important. What else is an interesting find here? Decentralization is very important to Watson. Kind of important to me. CTO Larsson says you have 1,000 validators. That's good enough. Security, you and I are very much aligned on this. It probably comes from our experience with enterprise software. dApps, not that important to Watson. TVL, not important at all to Dr. Watson too, which is pretty cool to see. And we're kind of aligned there. What else falls out? Do you see anything here that's interesting for you, that surprises you?
I think what is most interesting here is that, because you sent this just before the call, and I filled this out. And when I filled it out, you sent it in Excel. So I went in and I did hide column, so I wouldn't see your thoughts, and I filled it out without that. And it is we're incredibly aligned here. That's what's interesting. Just to explain with decentralization, it's critical to me that it's decentralized enough.
Yep.
If it's not decentralized, if it is centralized, and it can have a million validators, but if it's in practice controlled by one person, it's not decentralized. If you can arrest that person, it's gone. Many maybe weren't around at that time, but was it 2017 or 2018, the first decentralized exchange was called Ether Delta. That was the decentralized exchange that was a smart contract deployed on Ethereum, which already at that time had a lot of validators. And it was a smart contract deployed. You can't switch it off, right? You can't switch off Ethereum. But it was in practice run by one person. So they went and arrested that guy and said that, you better switch this off, otherwise we're going to sue you in the US. And then the guy switched off the website. So I guess the smart contract is there, but everyone stopped using it. So then it wasn't decentralized. So what I mean is that it has to be decentralized enough. That's critical. Otherwise, this is just a useless database. But once it's decentralized enough, it doesn't become better for being more decentralized. It's a threshold that you need to cross, not a scalable.
Excellent. And the reason we're doing this for everybody as well is just so you know, CTO Larsson and I, we do not shill. We analyze. We spend a lot of time analyzing blockchain, assets, equities, and we are high conviction investors because that's the way you make money. You do not make money owning 50 different things. You make money having high conviction, but you do your homework in advance. You invest with high conviction early in top names, and that's how you make a difference. And we are hoping, everybody, that this methodology will help you all do your own research. Find those winners early. But if you are just out there listening to people on Twitter and YouTube, you're going to lose. And that's a simple fact of life. So everybody, please subscribe to CTO Larsson's channel below. I know a lot of people are doing it already. You'll see a big bump in subscribership. And we're going to do something
Thank
very
you.
interesting next week too. So any final thoughts from
Really.
you, CTO Larsson?
No, it's absolutely true. One person said that investment is largely at arriving at the same conclusion as everyone else before they do. So
I love
it's
it.
exactly what you said.
Yeah.
If you go out and just listen to what everyone says, it's already too late. You have to somehow get in earlier. You have to think yourself and have some own system. When everyone's talking about it, it's kind of too late. You have to get in earlier than that. So it's so true. There's no shortcuts, and but it's fun. And yeah, this was, I really enjoyed getting the opportunity to think about all these things and talking with you, and yeah, getting the opportunity to talk to everyone here on your channel.
Exactly.
Thank you
And
for having me on.
pardon our dust too, as I'm trying to navigate screens and play with everything and be active in the comments. So, but the quality of the content is what matters, not me messing up with the screen share. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, CTO Larsson. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you all later. Tack in Sweden.
Tack. Thank you, tack.
Okay, see you later. Thanks, everybody.
See you later.